What's up, Rock Nation? It's your boy John here today. We're back with our first Thursday night preview of the NFL season. This one's between the Buffalo Bills. They're headed down to Hard Rock Stadium to play the Miami Dolphins. Currently, the line is sitting at Dolphins favored -1.5, and the over-under is 50.5. And if the week one of football is anything to judge by, I would say we're probably going to be looking at the under for that one. Weather in Miami, it looks pretty bad. It looks like it's going to be very hot, very humid, very slippery conditions as well. So fully expect that. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter as well. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, please leave a review. That really helps us out as well. And did you know that 60% of the people who are watching this video right now, you're not subscribed? So do us a favor. It's free. It's easy to do. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps us grow the channel as well. As far as Sunday slates have gone, Sunday slate was good for myself and for Sully. I had a 6-1 record in the end. That was awesome to see. And the Thursday night kickoff last week, we had a bad beat. We had Zay Flowers, longest catch, 20 plus yards, and he fell to 19.5. That was a bummer. But other than that, we had a pretty good weekend for week one. So excited to get into these week 2 props. If you're interested in the footy as well, I'm going to be bringing you the semi-finals as well. That video will be out shortly too. So you'll be able to break down all the action from footy coming up this weekend. Should be awesome to see. But without further ado, let's get into the Thursday night preview. Bills at Dolphins. Here we go. All right, we'll start with the Buffalo Bills. And interesting game last week against the Cardinals. They got off to a really slow start. They got out to a 0-17 lead deficit by halftime. And then Josh Allen really came alive. It was great to see. I think I saw a stat to him, and was it Steve Young? He's tied Steve Young for the record for 4 times, 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns in a game. That was really interesting to see. Here's my number one thing to judge from the weekend going forward is, what is this Buffalo Bills cornerback room going to be like? Is it that the Cardinals just did not get it ever going with Kyler Murray, or is there something more to this defense, this Bills defense? Because now they're going to come up against a real test in Tua, in Tyreek, and in Jaylen Waddle as well as Devon, Achane. And I'm going to be looking at all those guys. So this is going to be interesting to see. If we go back, so James Cook really had his way with the Cardinals defense. That was to be expected. If we go back to last year and we take a look at the Buffalo Bills, let's specifically look at these 2 games that they played last year. So Bills won both of them. They won in Miami, and then they won up in Buffalo as well. The first game went over the 52.5. Tua went over all of his prop lines. So he had a huge game. I think he was using the running backs a lot because Raheem Mostert also went over his prop lines. Weirdly, Tyreek and Jaylen Waddle both did not go over theirs. If we take a look at the second game, though, the Week 18 game between the Bills and the Dolphins, Bills won that game as well, but Tua struggled. He struggled by the end of the season. He did not go over his 240 prop line. Tyreek did go over his props, though, but Jaylen Waddle struggled. The run game struggled a little bit, although there was a little bit of success there as far as rushing for Raheem Mostert goes. So we'll see how this matches up. I have to believe that this is an instance early on where I want to go all in the Dolphins here. I think that the Dolphins are going to win this game. I think that they're all going to go over their passing yards, receiving yards. The reason I say that sounds pretty wild, especially considering it's a divisional game, but it happened last year. And let's jump to the Miami defense now. Week 1, they finally got going in the second half against Jacksonville. And then from there on out, they did a really good job of stopping Trevor Lawrence. He did not go over his passing yards. Travis Etienne did not go over his rushing props, but Tank Bigsby did. So that was interesting to see. And Brian Thomas went over his receiving prop lines. He had actually a pretty good game, considering all things considered, for the rookies. So that's going to be interesting to see for the Buffalo receivers on the other side as well. The Dolphins did come out with a win in the end. If we take a look at last year, Dolphins had a pretty good run defense, and I fully expect that to still stay the same. So I'm staying off James Cook this week, even though we had him in our Sunday slate ticket, and he did go over. That was awesome to see. And then we're still trying to figure out these Bills receivers. What are they? Who's the guy? We know last week Khalil Shakir had a great game. Keon Coleman, low-key, had a very good game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we jump back on him this week. I know that we've been staying away from rookies, but he was actually utilized a lot more than I thought he would, and a lot more than the sentiment in preseason would suggest as well. Dolphins were not great against tight end last year, so I would love to see Dalton Kincaid get going in this spot as well. We might jump on him potentially, but this could be a very big Josh Allen game. This strikes me as the year that Josh Allen wants to, I don't know, light the world on fire, win MVP, win a Super Bowl, do it all. So let's get into these guys now. As far as injuries go for both teams, I don't think there's too much to report. I know I saw Devon Achane was listed on the injury report, but I think everyone just pulled up sore. Similar with Josh Allen, he seemed to have just pulled up sore from week one, so hopefully they'll get going. This is a short turnaround. This is a Thursday night game, so keep that in mind. Anything could happen, and unders seem to be aplenty, but let's see what we come up with. All right, let's start with Josh Allen. Last week, did not have the 250 yards passing that he needed to get his over, so I kind of expect that to continue. That was a similar trend with the end of last year. From their bye week, from week 13 onwards, he only went over that one time, that 250 yards. Now, albeit, it was against the Dolphins in week 18, but that was a win and in-must situation for the Bills to make playoffs, and Josh Allen really came alive. He had multiple passing touchdowns. He had over his completions, his passing attempts. He had over his rushing. He was a man on a mission. I'm not too sure that we're going to see a similar game script for this one. So with that in mind, all other games leading up to that, he went under and they were running the ball a ton. So let's stick off Josh Allen at this stage if he's going to be about 250 passing yards. I don't want to touch that. Last week, he was under his passing attempts as well. He was under his passing completions as well. If anything, I'm looking at the unders here. I expect them to try and utilize James Cook a ton. Ray Davis was actually not too bad last week as well. So that's the way I'm looking for that. Let's jump over to Tua though, because I'm looking at these Dolphins, and Tua had a really slow end to the season last year. There is that sentiment that Tua in the second half of the year, he really starts to pack it in and slow down a little bit. If you look at his first 5 games, his prop line was sitting around 260 passing yards, and he went over that every single week except for week 2. Leading up to week 5. So fully expect he had a great game last week against Jacksonville as well. Tyreek Hill and himself took advantage of a couple of busted coverages. He was one of only 2 quarterbacks to throw for over 300 passing yards in week 1 as well. So would not be surprised if that happens again. I think he's going to keep up this pace, especially being at home in Miami in the conditions that he wants. So we'll go with Tua over 266.5 passing yards, and then I'll lay off the other ones for now. We touched on James Cook earlier. I'm going to stay off him this week, even though he was very good to us in week 1. He went over his rushing yards, his rushing attempts, his receiving yards, his receptions, his scrimmage, and his longest rush. He went over everything. So I want to just backtrack from that a little bit. The Cardinals' run game is very, very bad. It was very bad last year, and it by all accounts did not get any better. So you'll hear Kyren Williams' name in the Sunday Slate episode from me. The Dolphins' run defense is a little bit better, and I fully expect that to be the case here. I think that they've been utilizing James Cook a lot. I'm going to be interested to see at what point that starts to impact him, because you got to remember, James Cook, he's a really, really small guy. He's like under 6 foot, and I'm pretty sure he's under 200 pounds, or he might be sitting around 200 or 205. So he's not a huge guy. And for him to carry the full workload of the team and Josh Allen, I'm just not sure about it. So even though we don't quite know what the Bills' scheme is yet, I'm going to stay off James Cook in this one. All right, it's this Dolphins run game that I really want to focus on. Last year, it was difficult to tell who was the guy. One week it was Raheem Mostert. Next week it was Devon Achane. And then it'd go back to Raheem, and then it would just switch all season long. Achane did miss a bit of time with an injury though. But if we take a look at what happened in week 1, I know that Achane did not make his rushing props last week. He had 53.5 rushing yards that he did not get, but Mostert did not get his either. Achane, however, set a career high. I think he had something like 7 catches, was it? Oh, no, sorry. He did. He had 7 receptions for 76 yards. He was used in the pass game a ton, and I absolutely love that. I mainly love that for scrimmage yards, believe it or not. If you want to get receiving, that might be too high, but if that gets up to 25 to 30 and a half receiving yards that you need for Achane, this is where I might actually pivot to the scrimmage yards. Expect the rushing to come down. With pass-catching running backs, I like to focus on scrimmage, whereas I don't with bell cow running backs and rushing yards because they don't offer much in the receiving game, and then you have to pay up to get even more yards. And so it doesn't make any sense. But with the pass-catching running backs, this actually works out well because then you can rely, if they rip off a huge run, you get that in your scrimmage as well. So with Achane, I'd be looking at the 25 and a half receiving yard prop line that will probably be there. There'll be about 3.5 receptions, I imagine. And if scrimmage is all the way up to 80 and a half scrimmage yards, I'm keen to take the over on that one. Raheem Mostert, his utilization last week, it started to drop back. I think we've started to see a bit of a changing in the guard there. You might have noticed if you were looking at the snap counts and the usage and the yards per route run on both of those running backs there. For whatever reason, last week, Mostert, he had a receiving yards line of 5.5, and he needed 1 catch, and he definitely got that. So if you can find that kind of value, by all means, take advantage of that. If he just needs 1 catch, I'm into that. But for the most part, I want to focus on Achane for probably the rest of the season going forward. All right, I'll start with the Buffalo receivers here, and I'm interested. We talked about him earlier. Keon Coleman, last week, he was one of the few rookie receivers who did really, really well. He had a line last week of 35.5 receiving yards, 2.5 receptions, and 17.5 for the longest reception. And he went over all of those lines. So great to see from his utilization because I wasn't sure what we're going to get based on the sentiment that we heard in preseason. Thought that it would be between Khalil, Shakir, and Curtis Samuel even, but both of those guys went under their lines. So I might be even looking to go back on Keon Coleman again, potentially for a longest reception line or even a receiving prop line. If it's still 35.5, I'm still into it. But maybe even the 2.5 receptions that he might need. The other receivers, I mentioned them. So Khalil, Shakir, I'm going to stay off. I think the line is a little bit too high considering they spread the ball around a ton. I think there was something like 9 different receivers in the end. There was like Marcus Valdes-Scantling was involved. Dawson Knox tragically was still involved. I know that Ray Davis was involved a little bit. James Cook was involved, Khalil, Shakir, and so on and so forth. So with and that's right. There was Mac Hollins who scored the first touchdown as well for them. Bloody hell. So this is where it gets a little bit too hard to know for sure. But I did talk about how the Dolphins linebackers are a bit of a tricky issue. So I'd love to see Dalton Kincaid, who was absolutely useless last week. I'd love to see him be a little bit more involved. I just need to see it first before I put any money down on him. If you wanted to take a look at Dawson Knox, 20.5 receiving, I'm not going to do it. But I understand if you would like to do it. If you can find a Curtis Samuel under 3.5 receptions, I'm into that. I'm into taking the under on that one as well. But we're going to look at the Miami receivers. That's the way we really want to play this. There's only a couple of them to think about as well. There's only Tyreek, Jaylen Waddle. We haven't seen anything from Odell Beckham. The Jonnu Smith experiment, it didn't take off last week. Will it take off this week? We'll see. I know last year, Durham Smythe, he was basically completely uninvolved. And then Braxton Berrios is the other one. He had a couple of passes go his way and he couldn't hold them in. So that was interesting to see as well. Okay, Tyreek Hill, are we willing to bet him up to 105 receiving yards? Are we willing to do it? If his longest reception as well, maybe that'd be the better way to play that. Because if he's going to have 100 yards, he's going to rip off a long one. And if we can get a longest receiving line of about 27.5, if that goes all the way up to 30, it might be worth playing that. The one I really want to look at, though, is Jaylen Waddle. He had a great game last week. I was actually quite nervous because he went into concussion protocol early, and then on Sleeper, he was ruled out. But then he did actually come back into the game, and he had over 100 yards receiving. So love to see that. So I want to play this. How about this? Tyreek Hill, longest receiving reception. Still getting used to saying that. 27.5 will go over for that. And then what about Jaylen Waddle receiving yards? If that's still sitting at 65.5 up to 70, I might play the over on that one as well. Okay, let's take a look at this ticket then. So we're going to go Tua, over 270 passing yards. We're going to go Achane, over 80.5 scrimmage yards. We're going to go Waddle, over 70.5 receiving yards. We're going to look at Tyreek Hill, longest reception, 27.5. We're going to go over that. And if we have to rely on one more line, let's go with, I don't want to do the rookie. Let's go with Keon Coleman, over 2.5 receptions. We'll lock that in as well. That's going to do it for a Thursday night preview. It's good to be back for doing these again. If you're still watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That really helps us out. And leave a review on Apple and Spotify as well. Check out our socials as well. You can do that. We'll be back with the Sunday Slate episode coming soon to you. I've got a couple of really good picks that I'm into. And also the footy semi-finals are going to be back as well. So until then, enjoy all the games that are going to come this weekend. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye. Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly. In Australia, phone 1-800-858-858 for free and confidential support. In Canada, learn about safer play at Know the Risks from the Responsible Gambling Council at knowtherisks.ca. In America, must be 21 or older and present in Arizona. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. Colorado, gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Connecticut, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Indiana, gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Kansas, gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com. Louisiana, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start or call 1-800-GAM-1234. In Michigan, gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. In New York, for help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Tennessee gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789. Wyoming gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Prop Nation betting show is for entertainment purposes only and should in no way be considered financial advice.